Hey friends, it's Corey from Hey Let's Make Stuff. In today's video, we're going to start talking about something that is new to this channel, and that is DTF printing or direct-to-film printing. This is sort of a step up from other types of garment decoration I've talked about on my channel, including HTV and sublimation. With DTF printing, you can transfer full color images to all colors of blanks. So if you're sort of limited by sublimation to light colored fabrics or polyester, you can use DTF prints on dark colors and cotton. In this video, I'm just going to give you a broad overview of DTF printing, and then in future videos I will go over printer setup and maintenance, as well as how to use the transfers. Now you may notice I don't actually have a printer sitting in front of me, and that's because I decided that for me personally it wasn't worth the cost. So instead I traveled to Heat Transfer Warehouse in Fargo, North Dakota with my friend Angie Holden so that we could spend a few days learning all about this printer so we could share it with you. That means that all of the footage that you're going to see in these videos was actually filmed in North Dakota and not here in my craft room. The printer that we used was the DTF Station Prestige A4, and this DTF printer is perfect for crafty small businesses that don't need a huge print shop setup. DTF printing prints onto film, direct to film, instead of paper. And then you add a special adhesive, you cure that adhesive, and then you can use the transfers on all sorts of garments. A DTF printer has 5 ink colors, so we are working with the regular CMYK colors as well as white. And that white color is what makes it so great for printing on dark fabrics. So you can create incredibly bright transfers that are really soft to the feel. But DTF printing is still sort of in its infancy. I had somebody at Heat Transfer Warehouse explain it to me that we're sort of on the iPhone 1. So at the time it was revolutionary, it changed everything, but it is a long way to go from that iPhone 1 to that iPhone 14 or whatever we have now. Similarly, DTF printers and the technology is still a little rough. We really are on the ground floor of this technology. I had friends at Printing United, which is the big printing trade show, and they said that DTF was everywhere. So it seems like a lot of companies are getting in the game, and over the course of the next few years, I expect to see a lot of progress in this space. So as I go through this video, you may need to decide, am I an early adopter? Do I want to get into DTF on the ground floor? Because I really do think it's going to be one of the next big things. Or do you want to wait a few years for the industry to level out a bit? So the first question you might want to ask yourself is, who is DTF printing for? And like I said, I decided it's not for me. It really is more for crafty small businesses and not hobbyists. And that's because it does require pretty consistent maintenance and printing. And for me, I have many machines here in my craft room, and I'm not using them every day or every other day or even every week, which means that if I have a machine that needs consistent maintenance, I'm going to have to take time out of my day to do maintenance on a machine that I'm just not using. So it just didn't make sense for me. But if you are running a small t-shirt shop, something like that, then a DTF printer might actually work really well for you. A small DTF printer like the Prestige A4 is probably good for a smaller craft business because it can't do like these enormous jobs. Those machines will cost you $20,000 plus. But on this smaller machine, you can print about 9 feet per hour, which means about 40 to 50 prints per day. So maybe you have a small sublimation shop and you have to turn down orders because you can't print on cotton or dark fabrics. Or maybe you want to sell t-shirts and sweatshirts at your local craft fair or a boutique. Or maybe you just want to sell the DTF transfers themselves. There are crafters who buy those online and then press them to their own garments at home using their heat press. These sort of people might benefit from a DTF printer. And like I said, I am not that target customer, which is why I went ahead and just traveled to learn about the printer without bringing one into my craft room. I'm going to go into more depth in another video, but let me walk you through the basic DTF printing process. You're going to set up your printer and add the inks. The inks come in bottles. It's a liquid ink and there's tanks on the side. And then you are going to add the film to the back of the machine. The film comes on a roll for the Prestige A4, but on other machines it comes in sheets. You'll then upload your design to the RIP software, and this is a specialized software needed for printers like this. I suggest using a transparent PNG, so a PNG with a transparent background. Lots of sublimation images will work for DTF printing. Then your machine will print your design onto the film. Once it's printed, you'll cut that off and you'll take it over to your powdering station. Now this needs to be a little distance away from your machine because the powder can get in the air and you don't want it gunking up the machine. But basically you will powder the back of your design. So with this hot melt adhesive, you'll powder the back of your design and you'll sort of flick off the excess. And then you'll need to cure it using either a curing oven or a heat press. Once the adhesive is cured, you've got a couple options. You can store your transfers or you can press them onto your garment. So you'll use a heat press set to 325 for 15 seconds to press these transfers to your garment. These press so easily. I haven't really even messed up one of them, and I've done quite a few. They are very, very easy to press. Finally, you'll peel back that carrier sheet, and then you'll put a pressing cloth, or sometimes I'll just fold up the bottom of the shirt that I'm working on, and I'll give it one final press to really adhere that design. The process is fairly simple, although it can be a little bit messy, but the results that you can get are pretty amazing. You may notice that I continue to use the word garment, and that's because DTF printing is designed for garments and other soft blanks. So I've got 3 t-shirts here, as well as a little bag. Angie and I are both going to be doing some tests on other blanks that DTF is not made for, including hard blanks like mugs and tumblers and bookmarks and wood. I have no idea how any of those are going to turn out, but we'll be doing those for another video. So if you're interested in seeing if this process will work on another type of blank, make sure you check out that video when it comes out. For all my projects these days, I use Bella Canvas garments because they are so soft and I really like their eco-friendly manufacturing techniques. If you haven't heard and you haven't signed up yet, even though I say it in practically every other video, they do have their makers account where you can sign up for wholesale pricing without a reseller license, which is a really, really great way to save money on your blanks. No matter what blanks you use, you will want to use probably cotton or polyester. They don't recommend sort of stretchy fabrics, but I did also put it on this little canvas bag, turned out super cute. So other soft blanks like tote bags, zippered pouches, pillowcases, you can definitely DTF on those. The next thing we need to talk about is software. So I mentioned before that you need to upload your PNG designs to this specialized RIP software. And this basically turns your file into the file that is needed for this type of printing. The biggest problem here, my friends, is that it is only for PC. As a Mac user, not great, not a big fan. I really wish that they had a Mac version, but they just don't. Pretty much all higher end printers that need a RIP software are going to need a PC computer. Very frustrating, I totally understand. So if you really want to get into this, you may need to buy yourself a very cheap PC. The software itself runs super light, so you don't need anything fancy or anything expensive, but you do need a PC to run that software. It does feel a little bit dated if you're used to using some more modern software, but you can upload your file, you can make some changes, and print your project. And of course, I'm gonna get the question, how do DTF transfers wash? This is the question that everybody wants to know. I'm currently in the middle of washing one of my son's t-shirts that I made for him as many times as I can. I'm keeping a little track. I think I've washed it 6 times so far. Still looks great. When printed and applied correctly, DTF transfers should last 50 to 100 washes, which, I don't know about you, that's a lot of washes, way more than you might get out of HTV. So how much is all this awesomeness going to cost you? Well, friends, it's not cheap. It's one of the more expensive things I've ever shared here on my channel. To get a printer and a curing oven bundle that does come with inks and a bunch of other things, it's a little less than $4,000 on Heat Transfer Warehouse's website. And I understand that is probably out of most people's budget, and that's totally fine. It's the way our budgets work, right? But if you have a crafty small business that's doing really well, this might be a really good option for you to level up. You can find cheaper DTF printers out there. However, I would recommend buying from a reputable dealer like Heat Transfer Warehouse with a reputable printer like the one from DTF Station. This is because these printers are not the easiest to maintain and they clog very easily. And if you buy through a reputable dealer, you have access to that dealer as well as DTF Station's help desk. They can help you work through any issues you're gonna have. And I know a lot of people bought cheap DTF printers that clogged and they weren't able to unclog them because there was absolutely no support. So while yes, it's a little bit more expensive to buy it through a reputable dealer, you get that support, and with this printer in particular, I think you need it. Now that we know the cost, let's compare this decoration method to some of the other ones you might be familiar with. First up is HTV. So if you've been following my channel, you know that I do a lot of Cricut content, so you're probably familiar with HTV. It's a heat activated vinyl. You can cut it out on your Cricut, Silhouette, other cutting machine, and apply it to a garment using a heat press or something like a Cricut Easy Press. This is a great method of t-shirt decoration, especially for hobbyists, because the barrier to entry, the cost to entry, is not very expensive compared to other methods. HTV generally comes in one color. You can of course layer it, you can buy patterned HTV, but DTF printing, you can print 4 colors, very vibrant images, whatever you'd like. As far as the feel goes, most HTV is thicker than these DTF prints. There's some really thin HTV that's very nice to the feel, but these DTF prints are very thin and very soft. And then over time, you're probably familiar with HTV, it can peel, crack, all of those things that we hate after we've washed our shirts a couple times, whereas DTF should last you 50, maybe 100 washes. Then there's DTF printing compared to sublimation. With sublimation, you can also print 4-color designs, which is awesome. And when you apply those designs to a garment, it actually infuses into the fibers of the garment and you have absolutely no feel. So that's actually a benefit to sublimation. You don't even feel it at all when it's on your garment. The biggest downside to sublimation is that for sublimation to work, you need a light colored garment and it needs to be polyester or polycoated. So you are very limited in the type of blanks you might want to use because you can't put sublimation on dark or cotton fabrics. Sublimation, however, can also go on hard blanks like tumblers and home decor pieces, whereas DTF really is meant for garments. But again, stay tuned for another video where we will test out some of those non-traditional DTF projects. Third, we have DTF printing versus screen printing. Now I have to say I've never done any screen printing myself, and everything I have learned is from Jennifer at Pigskins and Pigtails, so if you want to check out her channel for more screen printing info. With screen printing, you'll have fewer colors because for each color you want to lay down in ink, you will need a separate screen for it. The time to make the screens can be a little bit labor intensive, but once you have those screens, you can actually move much more quickly than the printer. So screen printing is actually better for larger batches, especially if you have the right setup for it, whereas DTF might be better for smaller batches. Screen printing and DTF printing should wear about the same, and they can both be used on a variety of fabrics. Fourth, we have DTF printer and white toner printing, which is not something I've talked about here, but it's something that I personally am very interested in. So white toner printing is a different type of printer that instead of using ink, it uses toner, and there's white toner in there, meaning that you can make full 4-color designs like DTF. DTF printing has that powdering and curing, whereas the white toner printing has this marrying process that I am not completely familiar with, but it involves basically adding that adhesive separately from your print. The nice thing about a white toner printer is that it basically requires no maintenance. You can let that thing sit for months, and because it is a powdered toner, you can come back and your ink won't be clogged. That being said, it is more expensive, maybe twice the cost of DTF printing. I'm still on the fence on whether or not I want to get a white toner printer because of the cost, but I really love that it doesn't have any maintenance, which just makes more sense for me and the way that I craft. Another garment decoration process that you may have heard of is DTG, which is direct to garment. It's where you actually put your shirt inside the printer and your image is applied directly to your shirt. This is a much more expensive process, think maybe like buying a small car, and so I don't think most people for my channel are going to be interested in DTG printing. However, it is out there. It prints right on your shirt. There's none of the powdering and curing and marrying processes. DTG printing is a whole other beast. I'm probably never going to go into it on this channel, but I wanted to let you know that it exists just in case you wanted to check it out for yourself. Finally, let's compare DTF transfers to Supacolor. So I did a video about Supacolor a while back. They are basically a company where you upload your design and then they send you the transfers, so you don't have to get the printer at all. Now, I like Supacolor a lot. The DTF transfers that we got out of the printer are a little bit thinner than Supacolor, but both apply really easily and I like the results for both of them. Of course, you'll pay more per print for Supacolor because they have their time and their materials, but you of course don't have to buy the printer. And then you may also be hearing about an Epson EcoTank DTF hack. And this is where you put that DTF ink in an Epson EcoTank, similarly how you would hack a sublimation printer by putting sublimation ink in it. And basically you can print these DTF prints using that printer. Now the biggest problem here is that there's no white tank in an Epson EcoTank, which means that you are still going to only be able to put those on light colored garments. You can put them on cotton garments, but you won't be able to put them on dark garments because you really need that white as a blocker so that all of your color stands out on top of that white. That back layer is usually all white, especially on dark garments. And so you really need that layer for anything to pop off a dark garment. I've been wanting to dive into DTF for a long time, but I did have some safety concerns. And it wasn't until I talked to the folks at Heat Transfer Warehouse and DTF Station that I got comfortable enough to actually try it out. I had two concerns. One was with the powdering, when you're shaking that powder all around and it's going into the air, is that safe to breathe in? And the other was when it's curing, all of those fumes of the melting adhesive, is that safe to breathe in? And the answer is no, it's not really safe to breathe in either of those. For the powdering part, I totally decked myself up in safety gear because I really didn't want to breathe in that powder. So I wore an N95 mask. You could also wear a respirator. I wore some safety goggles, gloves, and an apron. I did not want this stuff on me. I also showered every night when we got back from our Airbnb because I did feel just a little bit gritty from that adhesive that was floating in the air. Then there's the curing process. And I know a lot of people cure their DTF prints by hovering it under a heat press, and I am just not comfortable with that. even while wearing my mask and everything. So I think that the curing oven that you can get with the printer is really the best way to go because it has a charcoal filter and it's all enclosed, and those fumes are basically caught so that you're not breathing in all of those adhesive plastic fumes. The curing oven is also way faster than curing it under a heat press, and you don't have to hold it. You just shut the lid, push the button, and it counts down, whereas with a heat press you have to hold it. So this is holding it for 4 minutes or just sticking it in there for 60 seconds into the oven. I really think the oven is the better way to go. Heat Transfer Warehouse actually believes so much that people should have the oven that they don't even sell the printer without the oven, just for all of the safety concerns involved with using a heat press to cure your projects. So that's the basics of DTF printing. Have I convinced you? Probably not for most of you, but for some of you, you may be thinking this might work for me. Make sure to stay tuned to my channel. In the upcoming months, I'm going to be doing about 1 video per month on DTF. The next video, I'm going to go into the printer setup and maintenance so you can really see what it takes to maintain the machine that makes these really wonderful prints. Then I'll be going over how to upload files, make the transfers, apply them to shirts, apply them to all those other things they're not supposed to be applied to, as well as some tips and tricks for making the most out of this printer. And if you're like, no, this printer is definitely not for me, but I really would like to try those transfers, Heat Transfer Warehouse is now offering DTF prints. So you can go to their website, you can upload your design and basically buy transfers from them that you can apply with your own heat press. So easy. And they don't have a minimum quantity, so if you just want one to try out, you can do that. I recommend you order a few more just in case you mess up, but you can order very small quantities, which is awesome. I'll go ahead and link to the printer as well as those DTF transfers down in the description, and if you have any questions, please let me know in the comments. I hope you found this video on DTF printing informative and interesting. Make sure to stay tuned for those future videos when I will do a deeper dive in how to actually use these transfers. If you found this video helpful, go ahead and give it a like, subscribe to my channel for more Cricut, sublimation, laser, and now DTF content. I'll see you next week.